Where did Kisara run off to?
You don't think she took off after Kelzelik, do you?
No. Miguel entrusted her with his dream. She wouldn't do something reckless like that. Right now, I think she just needs time to think. What she does from here on out is up to her. She has to be the one to decide.
I'm amazed how easily you can move such a giant shield around like it's nothing.
Really? It's not actually as heavy as it looks.
It's really reassuring to have someone like you protecting us, though.
You know, I guess I never realized it before. But looking back, I've always been the sort to put myself in harm's way to protect those around me, even before I joined the Elderman and Sia Guard. So in a way, using this shield to keep you all safe feels like it's what I was meant to do.
You don't need to worry about protecting me. I don't plan on relying on you.
That's okay. It doesn't matter if you do or not. I don't protect people because they ask me to. I do it because I want to, and because I think it's the right thing to do. That goes for you too, Dohalim.
Me?
Yes. You see, you and I both want the same thing. We have the same goal. That means it's in my best interest to continue to protect and keep you safe as well. Even now.
I'm not sure how much protecting I'll need either, but I appreciate the thought. I'm sure you'll do us proud, Kisara.
Right. You can all count on me.
What was Kelzelik even after in the end?
Isn't it obvious? Clearly he wanted the throne for himself, and was gonna have his goons execute Dohalim to get it.
He had to have known he couldn't hope to defeat a lord. He should have run while he had the chance, instead of holding himself up in the palace.
Maybe he thought he couldn't run? Either way, the outcome's the same.
So he got desperate and decided to go for broke?
One might argue that he was another victim of mine, in a sense.
Huh?
There is no greater calling in life to a Renin than the crown contest, yet I refused to take part. The shock he felt at that must have been truly immense, enough to drive him to revolt, even though doing so meant defying Renin hierarchy.
I know I've said this before, but Danans and Renins wouldn't coexist here if it wasn't for your stance.
But that was no lofty idealism on my part, nor do I feel any pride at what occurred.
Spare us the pity party. You literally just joined us to uphold those ideals.
Shion?
No, she is absolutely correct. I shall speak no more of my misgivings.
Maintaining your shield? It's becoming a familiar sight.
Miguel was the one who taught me how to maintain my equipment after I first joined the Guard. Now, it's just a part of my routine.
Your brother always seems to come up whenever I talk to you.
That's because we had no other relatives, so it was just the two of us growing up. He was my idol, the one I looked up to and wanted to be like. When I became a guardsman, Lagiel wasn't too pleased to see me at first. It was Miguel who really welcomed me aboard.
Lagiel? Oh, right. She was Miguel's second in the Gold Dust Cats, wasn't she?
That's right. She's always been a very critical and down-to-earth person. In other words, the complete opposite of a dreamer like me.
You're more an idealist than some pie-in-the-sky dreamer.
Even so, that's my brother's doing. He'd never let me stop seeing a brighter world. He always did what he could to keep me smiling and happy.
You must have meant a lot to him.
He wasn't just kind either. He always worked so hard to set an example for me and everyone else around him. He was a true big brother. So much so that when he thought I was asleep, he'd slip out of the house to go training on the outskirts of town.
You seem to know a lot about it.
That's because I only pretended to be asleep and would follow after him. You know what? I'm at a good stopping point with my shield. If you've got time, how about I tell you a couple more Miguel stories?
I guess I'd better get comfortable.
Hey. Is it just me, or have those two barely spoken a single word to one another?
I know, right? But after everything that happened with Miguel, is it really any wonder?
Kinda puts a damper on the whole journey though, huh? How long do you think they're gonna keep this up?
If it bothers you that much, why don't you ask them?
Why do I have to ask?
How come you walk together like that?
She really doesn't beat around the bush.
You mean Kisara and myself?
You hadn't noticed? You've been practically joined at the hip ever since we left Vicente.
I guess it's force of habit, most likely. I was always ready to protect him, should the need arise. It sort of came with the job description.
Right. From being in the Elder Menancia Guard. Although, Dohalim's pretty capable of defending himself, isn't he?
Having guards doesn't necessarily mean the one being guarded is weak. No one's perfect all the time.
Even so, it's not like they're entirely wrong, Kisara. You're no longer in my employ, after all.
I don't know. I mean, if it's what she's used to and you're both comfortable with it, then who are we to judge?
But she doesn't serve him anymore. It isn't normal for her to keep following him around like she still does.
You know, she's probably right. And a lot has changed over the last few days. I guess it wouldn't hurt to rethink our relationship in light of the new circumstances. Perhaps I'll give it some thought after all. Does that sound all right by you?
Of course.
You might want to stop asking his permission for every little thing while you're at it.
Sorry. It's not that easy, shaking off old habits. I'll probably need a little time to get fully used to it. I've noticed that sometimes we come across enemies who fight like you, and try to dodge our attacks at the last second.
I hate those guys. I can get some hits in when they move into attack, but otherwise they slip past damn near everything else I throw at them.
If what you're seeking is a way to more reliably hit them, there is a solution.
Try to outclass them on reflexes?
I possess the ability to command Earth elemental beings to some extent. They emerge as the land itself and take root on my command. They will swiftly bind the enemies, at which point you can dispatch them.
Huh?
What he means is that he can make plants grow to hold the enemies in place. At least I think that's probably what he's saying.
I'm glad at least one of us understands him. So basically, if we find an enemy that likes to dodge, we should let Dohalim handle it.
I shall do what I can within my modest means to help.
You okay, Shion? You're not eating very much.
What's wrong? Do you not like the cheese fondue that you made?
Yeah, I'm used to seeing you more excited about food.
You're not feeling sick, are you?
No, I'm fine. It's nothing like that. It's just...
What?
I guess I just don't understand what the appeal is. We could just as easily put everything on a plate and pour the cheese on top of it instead.
I suppose it lies in being able to decide exactly how much cheese you want. There's also something to be said for enjoying how it all turns out. It's fun.
That's fine and all, but I wish the plate-to-mouth time was shorter.
I think I understand. You don't like having to put in so much effort into eating something, do you?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Actually, now that I think about it, you're a way less fussy eater than you look, Shion.
In my book, there's no one right way to eat a meal. Tuck in, take your time, be dainty or devouring. As long as you enjoy the food, that's what counts.
There's no need to stand on ceremony while we're out camping in the wilderness.
Yeah, you're right. In that case, don't mind if I do.
I've never seen someone dump that much cheese on a meal before. Got some interesting moves there, Dohalim. I'm glad you're on our side.
I'm simply glad to hear that I can make myself useful to you all. Huh?
What's wrong?
We seem to have come across some rather unusual objects.
What, you mean that pile of garbage?
No mere garbage, I assure you. Still, I've never seen anything shaped like it before. I'm intrigued.
Are you curious about this stuff, Rinwell?
Yeah. I think he might have found some old Danon relics. They look like the remains of a bunch of objects that disappeared after the Renans first invaded.
And yet here I am, holding them without so much as a second thought. I imagine the sight must be unsettling to you.
Not really, just that it must be nice to be a Renan who has time to indulge in stuff like that, unlike the rest of us.
Are you interested in this stuff too, Dohalim?
Charmed may be a better turn of phrase. I simply love objects that can give me a sense of what their maker was thinking, the history that went into their creation. You see, we Renans have hardly any such objects that trace back to our distant past.
I still don't understand what you two find so intriguing about it, though.
Why not? We're talking about our own culture here.
I get that, but it's not like this stuff is any use now, does it? It's just old. Real old.
Oh, but it does. Holding it in your hands like this, one can feel and engage with the distant past in a way no history book can ever accomplish.
I'll take your word for it. Well, seeing as it's Danon history, just make sure you're careful with it. All right, Dohalim?
But of course.
I just noticed none of you other Danons have spirit cores. Why is that?
Both of my parents were part of the resistance in Calaglia. In fact, my birth was kept a secret from the Renans.
Mine too. We always lived in hiding, so I never had a spirit core embedded in me like I was supposed to.
What about you, Alphen? You were a slave in Calaglia before all this, weren't you?
To be completely honest, I'm not sure why I don't have one. All the other Danon slaves around me did. I was the only exception. They tended to keep their distance from me to avoid attracting any attention from the soldiers, because of my mask and all. What about you, Kisara? Do you still have your spirit core?
No. I was able to find a good Renan doctor who's sympathetic to our kind, and had them remove it before I left. They did such a great job, the procedure didn't even leave a scar.
One of the benefits of coexistence, huh?
I know that once the spirit vessel was shut down, there wasn't much need for me to hurry. But still, I didn't like having that mark of servitude lingering on me any longer than I had to. It may sound a little strange to hear me say this, but I'm just me now. Not a guardsman or a slave. I'm my own woman, and this is my chance to have a new beginning.
This sure is one rugged road. You'd think they'd keep this at least a little better maintained, right?
Why spend energy fixing that which is rarely used? Repairs require time and effort, which in our world means slaves, often in great numbers. For you, it may be a simple request, but that can quickly become another's difficult burden. Nobody gains anything without someone expending effort.
And you know, somehow that someone always ends up being a Danon, while the Renans are the ones who gain.
True enough. Ideally, in a perfect world, I think it's only fair that the ones who need it should be the ones to perform the work.
However, when doing so could be dangerous like it is here, there are many who would prefer that it be others who risk their lives in their stead.
So, what you're saying is that people will just put up with the inconvenience until someone else comes along to fix it for them?
Indeed. And it is those who can no longer bear that feeling that inevitably take action. Much like the Danons in our group do so now. As strange as it may be to hear such a thing from the likes of myself.
It's true that most of the Danons in Calaglia have been resigned to just accepting things as they are. Still, we can't just blame them for...
What are you making that face for? You're not worn out already, are you?
Nah, just regretting I ever said anything in the first place.
Still thinking about how to act around Dohalim?
That obvious, huh? Except I don't think I'll be changing much after all. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to stay his servant. However, I am going to treat him like a fellow comrade, the same way I would with you or anyone else. For as long as I can remember, I've spent my life protecting others. But isn't that what friends do too? Support and protect one another in times of need?
Which in the end pretty much means doing as you've always done, right? If that's what you're most comfortable with, I'm certainly not going to give you any grief over it.
Actually, I've been thinking about how I ought to act around you all as well.
Oh?
When I set out on this journey, it was to rid Elda of its enemies, and search for wisdom in the outside world. Wisdom that I could potentially put to use on my return. I'm grateful to you all for letting me tag along. But it got me thinking, what am I actually contributing by being here?
What are you talking about? You know how to hold a weapon, don't you? That's help enough.
Is it though? Sometimes I wish there was more I could be doing to pull my...
Oops, sorry about that. Jeez, I'm famished.
Now that you mention it, what do you guys normally do for food and meals when you're out and about on your travels?
What do you mean, what do we do? We find stuff to eat and eat it. So long as it's meat, I'm not fussy.
Eating what you like can be good for morale in the short term, but you need to think about your diet if you want to stay healthy.
Does that mean eating vegetables too?
Isn't that obvious?
It does, which I guess hasn't been happening up till now.
Yeah, to be honest, we could be eating better than we do.
Understood. In that case, I'll just have to make sure you're all staying healthy and eating right myself. Fortunately, I happen to know a thing or two about cooking as well.
You hear that, Law? Sounds like you'll be eating your greens after all.
What is it?
No, sorry, it's just... I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on all this.
It will do her good to have a project.
No, not Kisara. I meant you. Was there anything you wanted to add?
Me? Certainly you're not looking to me for culinary skill, I hope.
Typical Renan, leaving everything to someone else.
Rinwell, I don't think...
That said, should you need my skills on the battlefield, please rest assured I have no intention of shirking my responsibilities, regardless of who we may face.
I'm sure no one doubts that. Listen, guys, if we're traveling together, we should probably at least try to make an effort to get to know one another, don't you think?
I wouldn't get your expectations too high in that regard. Believe it or not, sometimes I'm not sure I even know myself all that well.
Something wrong? You look like you're deep in thought.
Not exactly. I was merely thinking about you two and your sense of etiquette.
Oh?
Etiquette?
Indeed. To be quite frank, I find your lack of manners to be nigh intolerable.
That's not being frank, that's being and forget it. Do we really need to talk about this now?
Yes, I find such impropriety on your parts to be deeply unsettling. It concerns me greatly.
What do you want us to do? We were slaves. We never got to learn how to be proper like you.
Yeah, what he said. Maybe you missed how we were just focused on surviving.
Perhaps, but Kisara here demonstrates that it's quite possible for a Denon to learn proper manners.
That's because I was given the opportunity to learn. Moreover, my duties as a guardsman required it. Not every realm is like Menancia, as you well know.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to hold us to some other city standards.
Exactly. You've got to remember what it's been like for us living under the Rena elsewhere.
I will concede that you do indeed make a valid point. It would appear, for all my espousing the virtues of equality between our peoples, I was still looking down on the two of you.
You don't need to beat yourself up. I wasn't that offended by what you said, man.
Nevertheless, I shall mind my words from here on out. Having said that, I do believe you two would still benefit from learning the basics of proper society. I would be more than happy to teach you both when we camp out, if you like.
Yeah, no, I'll pass. Acting all prim and proper isn't really my style.
If you say so. How about you, Law? Would you like to learn? Although I suppose my first task is to reform your attitude toward the idea of good etiquette.
You're not gonna let this go, are you?
Dohalim's fighting style is... what's the word I'm looking for? Subdued? No...
Do you mean elegant, perhaps?
Yeah, that's the word. For better or worse, you can definitely tell he's cut from posh Renin cloth.
And he's not just skilled with the staff either. He can also use astral arts, including healing ones. I can see how he made it to the position of a lord.
You flatter me, but my fighting techniques merely come from a style that aims to conserve energy by minimizing body movement.
Is that why you wait until the last second before you dodge attacks? To avoid unnecessary movements?
No, I do that to sharpen my senses. I find that doing so is an effective means of drawing out my innermost strength.
Oh yeah, I've noticed you look stronger and strike out with your rod more after you dodge attacks. Guess that's why.
Still, it's a risk. Don't you ever worry you'll dodge at the wrong moment?
Then, it'll be just as well.
Huh?
It's nothing. Let us continue.
You worried about what's going on with Menencia?
What makes you think that?
Well, you were speaking to Kisara earlier, weren't you?
It's rude to listen in on others, you know.
Sorry. I didn't hear what you two were actually talking about, though. I just figured it was Menencia since it was the two of you.
I am but a former lord who has abandoned his post. I'm no longer in a position to lead the realm in any capacity whatsoever. Yet Kisara still seeks out my opinions, knowing full well that is the case. This despite the fact I am no longer her master either.
Couldn't it be precisely because you're not her master anymore? It's natural for friends to want to hear each other's opinions.
I hadn't considered that possibility.
It's funny what you miss sometimes.
Hardly uncommon among artistic types such as myself. When lordships are decided based solely on one's astral energy, it can lead to funny results.
But even so, you still took your job as lord seriously, didn't you?
Certainly. I learned to perform my functions. However, I was less interested in ruling, so much as avoiding life and death decisions. Of course, such a mentality in the end led only to sickening pain and death taking place elsewhere out of sight. I pretended not to see or hear any of it, content to let our supposed peace and equality keep me blind and deaf to reality. I was a fool.
But you're making amends.
I would like to think so. The path ahead is dark, yet I still walk on. I merely pray that I shan't fall down any holes along the way.
Something wrong? You look like you're deep in thought.
Not exactly. I was merely thinking about you two and your sense of etiquette.
Oh?
Etiquette?
Indeed. To be quite frank, I find your lack of manners to be nigh intolerable.
That's not being frank, that's being and forget it. Do we really need to talk about this now?
Yes, I find such impropriety on your parts to be deeply unsettling. It concerns me greatly.
What do you want us to do? We were slaves. We never got to learn how to be proper like you.
Yeah, what he said. Maybe you missed how we were just focused on surviving.
Perhaps, but Kisara here demonstrates that it's quite possible for a Denon to learn proper manners.
That's because I was given the opportunity to learn. Moreover, my duties as a guardsman required it. Not every realm is like Menencia, as you well know.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to hold us to some other city standards.
Exactly. You've got to remember what it's been like for us living under the Rena elsewhere.
I will concede that you do indeed make a valid point. It would appear, for all my espousing the virtues of equality between our peoples, I was still looking down on the two of you.
You don't need to beat yourself up. I wasn't that offended by what you said, man.
Nevertheless, I shall mind my words from here on out. Having said that, I do believe you two would still benefit from learning the basics of proper society. I would be more than happy to teach you both when we camp out, if you like.
Yeah, no, I'll pass. Acting all prim and proper isn't really my style.
If you say so. How about you, Law? Would you like to learn? Although I suppose my first task is to reform your attitude toward the idea of good etiquette.
You're not gonna let this go, are you?
Shion, are you sure you're okay?
Yeah, I already applied some healing arts to it. It didn't even leave a scar.
But his sword went nearly straight through you.
I'm all right. Unless I've turned into some kind of ghost and I'm haunting you all right now.
No, I know you're not. It's just...
Look, I appreciate you looking out for me, but I'm fine, really.
There was also that strange light that appeared when Shion was stabbed. It seemed to make the enemy retreat when he saw it. Alphen, do you have any idea what it might have been?
a light? I don't know. I was kind of preoccupied with other things at the time.
Now that I think of it, between that light and the blazing sword, just what sort of person are you, Alphen? Can you use Danon astral arts like Rinwell, perhaps?
He wouldn't know, Dohalim. He doesn't have any memories from his past, remember? Besides, we should really be getting out of here.
I suppose you're right. Forgive me. We've almost reached Nias, the capital of Mahag Saar. With any luck, we'll find a place there for Shion to rest.